Are you suffering from any pain in the front of the hip? If so, it's probably due to hip flexor weakness, tightness, or even tendonitis. Now, the hip flexor musculature involves the psoas major muscle, the iliacus, that makes up the iliopsoas, as well as the rectus femoris, which makes up the major muscle of the quad that also helps with knee extension. Now, if you're suffering from anterior hip pain, a lot of the times what we see in our office is it's due to that weakness or tightness. Now, why do we get this, you may ask? So the reason why we develop this type of pain is because most of us are in this sitting type of position. Now, in this position, that musculature I just talked about is actually in a shortened position, and there's no actual load or resistance on it, so the muscle tends to get tight and then weak. Then, all of a sudden, we stand up. Now that muscle's lengthening, but it doesn't have the strength to support the structure, so you may have that hip pain, or you may even notice your posture causing you to get some hip flexion in order to ease that type of hip pain. So if you're suffering from either this type of pain or this type of posture, give these exercises a try. So for beginners, a great way to start to isolate those hip flexors is just sit on the ground and try to sit up tall and just work on lifting the leg up as high as you can and moving it over, just like that. You can do both sides and do about 3 sets of 10 or so. And then if you have a band or some sort of other type of resistance, you can also do weights. If you can wrap it around your foot, you'll put both feet into the band, and then you'll kind of perform a marching type motion, really activating the hip flexor musculature. After we start strengthening the muscle and we get better activation, we're then going to start to work to also stretch the muscle. Now, we want to strengthen it first because a tight muscle is generally a weak muscle. So make sure you have that strength, and then we can start working in some stretches. So a great way for a beginner to start stretching this musculature is just take a chair, and what you're going to do is you're going to place your knee onto the chair. Now, have your knee towards the front of the chair to start, and then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to get into a lunge position to get deeper into the stretch. You should feel that stretch in that front of the hip. As we get more and more advanced with this stretch, what you want to do is start moving the knee closer to the back of that chair, okay? So now I'm getting a pretty good stretch here. Now, as we start to loosen up this musculature, starting to feel better, we then also want to work on our active range of motion and our glute activation so we can get some more extension in the hip to actively stretch the hip flexors. So to do that, what I want you to do, and this is a little bit more advanced, is you're going to hold that stretch for about 30 seconds or so, and then I want you to really try to squeeze that glute muscle. And a good way to test it is put your hand on it so you make sure you feel it contract, and then you're going to want to squeeze for about 30 seconds. And then repeat that about 2 to 3 times and do it on each side, and that'll help build up that active range of motion. Once we really develop some good range of motion in that hip, we then want to work on more compound type of movement. Now, one of my favorite movements for this would be a split squat. So a split squat, what we want to do is we want to really get a good stretch. And again, I'm really activating that glute to get some active range of motion in that hip. Now, it may be harder for beginners to get into this position. So a great way to start would be to come back to this chair and just start with a higher surface. So you may start with the chair, working in, squeezing the glute, getting that stretch in the front of the hip, and then just stepping up just like that. And then as this starts to get easy for you, you can move to a surface that's closer to the ground, such as this, such as a step, and do the same kind of thing. And then as you get stronger with that, eventually work your way all the way to a full split squat. Like that, okay? Other exercises that are also great for hip flexors are just simple things such as squats or anything where you're going to be putting that hip under load with resistance. When you get the compound movements, you start to feel pretty good about those. We can then start working on dynamic. Now, as humans, we're dynamic creatures. We walk, we run. So it's very important to practice dynamic movements. So a great one for this would be a walking type of lunge or a walking split squat. So what you would do for this is just same thing we were doing earlier. Really get some good stretch and glute activation, and then just step with it. And then for these, again, just do about 2 to 3 sets of 10 repetitions or so, okay? And then last but not least, once you start to get more advanced, you don't really have that hip pain anymore, but you want to make sure you don't injure it in the future. You can start working some plyometrics in here so we really get some good dynamic, fast movement. And the same kind of thing I'll show you with the split squat. All it's going to be is get into that position, and you're going to jump and try to land in that position with the other leg in front. Now this one's really good, and don't try this unless you're more advanced. And for all these movements, if you want to make them a little bit more difficult, just add a little bit of weight. You can grab some dumbbells, you can grab a weighted backpack, anything like that. Just be careful not to injure yourself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this information, and if you're suffering from any type of hip pain in that front of the hip, make sure to try these exercises. If you like this information and you want more health and wellness, give our channel a like and subscribe. Thank you.